Birdie to cool down a notch by suggesting that maybe the reason Dean broke things off with her was because she did too much for him, and she actually listens to her advice and takes it to heart. Wow, maybe this will lead to her being nicer from now on. Birdie, Clemency decided to strike while the iron was soft. You know how I've been saving up for my breast augmentation? Well, I've been saving as hard as I can for the past year or so, but I'm still about $1,000 off. It's so frustrating to have got so far, and yet I would really love to get the op done in the next couple of months, so now I'm pretty much healed for the summer. So I'm asking you, as a friend, if you might be able to loan me that last $1,000. It's a tenth of the cost of a Birkin I'm asking for, but it would change my life forever. What do you think? Birdie stopped fiddling with her phone for a moment and looked her PA in the eye. Did you just ask me for money? Clemency gave a nod so tiny you might have missed it. You just asked me for money. Okay, Birdie. Time out. $1,000. Do you know how many times a day people ask my grandfather and me for money? Do you have any idea how it feels? Sometimes I feel like people see me as a walking wallet. Birdie, time out. To be fair, said Clemency, I wasn't asking to be bailed out. I've been saving really hard, but I'm $1,000 short for an op that would make a real difference if I could have it now. I'd pay the money back as soon as I could. You should have saved harder. Time out, bitch! Time out! I trusted you, Clemency. I can't believe you could be so rude to me. Well, you know what you can do if you're not happy here? If you don't think I'm a good enough employer, you can take yourself elsewhere. I'll write you a reference. You can leave any time you like, she continued. I won't expect you to work out your notice, but perhaps you might want to wait until your next job is lined up. It's a hard labour market out there, especially if you're a little unusual. You know what? I'm already glad they're not friends anymore. Clemency is way too good to put up with such a spineless little cow. Oh, but don't worry, that's not even the worst part of this scene. Clemency overhears Birdie bitching to Chipper about their bite, and we get this lovely exchange. So I said to it, fine, you walk out right now if you want to. I'm sure there are people all over LA getting excited by the thought of employing some weirdo half-man, half-woman freak with a typing speed of 40. Fuck you, Birdie. Can you hear yourself speak? Do you realise how ugly you are on the inside? Because this is exactly the sort of selfish, disgusting and flat-out bigoted attitude that always gets you into trouble and makes every character hate your guts. And I especially hate your guts too. And believe me when I say that there is nothing but nothing you can do from this moment onwards for the rest of the book to redeem yourself. You're not funny. You're not some light-hearted, light-headed ditz. You are an ugly, horrible human being, a waste of oxygen, and no one will ever love you. So after bullying a transgender woman out of her job, Birdie discovers an article in Marie Claire about a man whose relationship with his girlfriend was getting stale until he came across the Dangerous Dreams website. And what is Dangerous Dreams, you might be asking? Has it got something to do with BDSM, or do they specialise in outdoorsy couple retreats in the wilderness or something like that? Oh, no. It's a kidnapping agency. Yeah. Frida was held in the basement of a house in the Hollywood Hills for 3 days before Andy burst in and rescued her. Their love was rekindled in an instant, and they got married in Vegas just 3 weeks later. Of course, Andy admitted, Frida still doesn't know I actually paid to have her captured. Birdie tells the girls about her plan to get herself kidnapped, and because neither Chip nor Clemency make an attempt to physically restrain her from once again resorting to the overdramatic, but only this time with potentially life-threatening consequences, they go ahead with this scheme and book an appointment to meet the CEO of a similar kidnapping website called Dreams of Danger. However, Dreams of Danger's CEO isn't at all what he seems, but not in the way that you're thinking. By the way, it's time for this book to introduce another walking punchline, and this one is a nerdy stereotype. The CEO's real name is Gareth Grimes, and he's a full-grown adult who still lives with his mother and spends all of his time on the internet. Yeah, nerds like that don't exist in real life. I mean, who could possibly relate to this in any way? Good day on the Webb, dear?" asked Mr. G's mother when she returned home from work to find her son sitting, as usual, in the room lit only by the flicker of a computer screen. "It's the internet, Mum," said Mr. G, as he found himself doing with irritating regularity. "It's the World Wide Web or the internet. It is not the interweb." Gareth, who hadn't told his mother about his business venture, hurriedly hid the cheque from Birdie Sederberg in his lap. He didn't want to have to explain. "Gareth," his mother wagged her finger, "I do hope you haven't let Mr. Winky out to play again." "Nerd! Gareth's a nerd! This book is for stupid people." The night of Birdie's arranged kidnapping soon arrives, as she heads off to a show for LA Fashion Week, but not before having yet another awkward encounter with Emily. Oh, who cares about that? Here's some more satire. The truth was, not many of the celebrities in the front row were all that interested in the clothes. They were far more interested in checking out who's on the front row on the other side of the catwalk. Yes, this show is really interesting. Oh, full pics! Full pics! They looked up at the models from time to time when they thought that a camera might be on them. It was a good look for the aspiring starlet, gazing up into the lights. Always a flattering angle, guaranteeing no unsightly double chin. Or, even better, you might be caught chummily whispering in the ear of the slightly more famous starlet to your left or right. Wow, the lives of famous people aren't what they seem to be. I never would have guessed. The Dreams of Danger guys are parked outside in position, and all seems to be going to plan. But it looks as though Birdie's biggest ploy for attention yet isn't so secret after all, because a little while back she stupidly decided to talk out loud about her plan in front of Nate, who went on to tell the rest of the eco-warriors, and they've since decided to kidnap her themselves in order to get Julius's attention. You know, 'cause they're the good guys. Obviously. Both parties, all of them conveniently wearing Disney masks, make a rush for Birdie upon her exit in the theatre, but she's eventually manhandled and dragged off into a parked van by at least one of her potential abductors. However, she realises almost immediately that this make-believe kidnapping plot of hers isn't turning out quite the way she planned. "Let go of my arm! You know I'm coming with you! Loosen off! You think I'm going to do that? Just do as you're told and you won't get hurt. Get moving. Come on, bitch. Pick up the pace." "Mr. G." The driver of the van did not look round. Birdie knocked on the partition. "Excuse me, I am fed up of this. You people are freaking me out. Mr. G, will you please tell them that there's no need for the role-playing anymore?" The driver of the van turned slowly, lifting the mask as he did so. Birdie didn't recognise him. "Huh?" she said. "Where's Mr. G?" "That's right. Birdie has been taken hostage for realsies. This calls for a celebration!"
So crazy right now.
The investigation into Birdie Sederberg's kidnapping begins, with Julius getting paid a visit by a pair of detectives who break the bad news to him upon arrival. And for what it's worth, he takes it pretty well. "For heaven's sake," said Julius, "this is most inconvenient." "You must be very worried," said Brighton. "I am. I have the Malaysian ambassador arrived in my office in half an hour. I'm negotiating the largest golf course in Southeast Asia. The last thing I need to be doing is dealing with a kidnap." "I only said he took the news well. I never said his heart grew 3 sizes that day or anything." Justin tells Dean to act concerned about Birdie and break up with Emily, because of course he does. But despite Birdie's disappearance becoming the biggest news story on the planet, Shiver starts to realise that something hasn't gone right and instantly tells the truth about her best friend's scheme to the cops. They soon arrest Gareth, his accomplices, and his mother, whose credit card was used by him for his operations, only to find out that they weren't the ones who kidnapped her after all, thus making Gareth's presence in the book entirely pointless, and all those nerd jokes from before were a complete waste of the reader's time. Oh, joy. Birdie wakes up a few hours later blindfolded, while a voice in front of her reveals himself to be none other than Nate? I always knew he was one of the few decent characters in this book, but I never thought he'd actually do us all a favour and go about destroying Birdie himself. Mad props. But unfortunately, it's not quite as simple as that. During the chaos of the botched kidnapping, he went back into the wrong van and wound up getting held hostage himself. Yet still one question remains. Just who was it that captured Birdie and Nate? Let's find out. "You want me to do it now?" asked Fat Man, getting out his gun. You can't shoot him in the van, said Robin. What if the bullet ricochets and hits one of us instead? Fat Man and Robin? Really? Those are the names that you two go by? The big scary villains of this story are called Fat Man and Robin? I just... Alright, fine. Believe it or not, you guys aren't actually the most annoyingly one-dimensional characters I've seen in this book so far, and at this point, I'm willing to put up with just about anyone. And while we're on the subject of annoyingly one-dimensional characters, don't think for 1 second that just because Birdie's been kidnapped, it means that she's changed in any way. If anything, she becomes even more clueless and stuck up once she's literally playing the victim, as proven by this scene when Fat Man and Robin are about to shoot their hostage video. At least let me comb my hair, said Birdie. Your hands are cuffed. We'll have to do it for you. Robin pulls a greasy comb out of his back pocket. Birdie ducked away from it, but Robin was intent on doing her hair. You're pulling, she complained. I swear to God you make Derek Zoolander sound like Neil deGrasse Tyson. Granddaddy, Birdie began, I've been taken hostage by a very professional gang. They have been keeping me in very good conditions, and you can see that I'm unharmed. If you deposit $1 million in the offshore bank account detailed at the end of this message, then I will be returned to you in one piece. If you don't, then... Birdie hesitated as she read the last line. I will be returned to you piece by piece, starting with my... Her eyes widened. Nate held his breath. Starting with my hair? The words came out like a wail. My hair! Oh no, not my hair, not my hair! Robin snatched a card from Fat Man. Ear. It's supposed to say ear. It doesn't look like ear, said Birdie. It's ear. Why would anyone care if we cut your fucking hair off? It takes for frickin' ever, Birdie explained. I had a disaster feather cut in 2004 and I'm only just getting over it. Oh, Birdie, you're going to die. With bad hair too. Fat Man and Robin sent the video to Julius Sederberg using an untraceable email address, and once again his only response is to do absolutely nothing and state callous remarks while prioritising the opening of his new golf course over the life of his flesh and blood. Not even his right-hand man Jim or personal assistant Mary can make him understand. They obviously mean business, and so do I. If they think that targeting my family members is going to make me turn out of my pockets, they are sorely mistaken. But Birdie looked so frightened, Mary interrupted. I'm sure she knows and understands the way I will deal with this matter. At the end of the day, Birdie is a Sederberg too. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to bitch about my rivals on Twitter while pretending to care about minorities. This new golf course of mine is going to make America great again. Shipper becomes distraught after seeing the gossip side accuse Birdie of pretending to be kidnapped, even though it's true, and hires Justin to publicise her search. The resulting campaign becomes an instant success, with a famous designer making free as Birdie t-shirts, and even the live MTV concert being announced to help raise awareness. Justin gets Dean to headline said concert, but he still has some reservations. You're telling me, said Dean, that you want me to headline at a show for my insane ex-girlfriend? Well, if you're gonna put it like that, then... yeah, it really is a fucking stupid idea. Chipper was very pleased with Justin's work. At last I feel like someone is taking this seriously, she said. Justin nodded in an understanding sort of way. Chipper didn't need to know that he had billed the whole campaign to his friend at MTV as your classic car crash reality show full of uber-rich losers and misfits. You'll be syndicating these clips for years. A woman has gone missing. I still hate Birdie's guts, of course, but a woman has gone missing. Elsewhere, Birdie and Nate have been locked inside an empty cold store, their kidnappers having made their escape the night before, and naturally, tensions are running a bit high between them. This is all your fault, she said. My fault? Nate's surprise was audible. How does that work? You pissed them off, so they stuck us in here. At least I had a bed before. I see, said Nate. Correct me by all means, but I do believe that you were the person who paid to have herself kidnapped, which is how this whole disaster started. Nate, don't try to bring logic into this situation. It's just not worth the energy. Yeah, What exactly is it you're going to do to make my life easier right now? We're locked inside a room with no windows and no light bulb. What do you propose we do next? Do you know about teleportation? Because if you can't break me down into particles and have me materialise back in my own lovely house, then I really don't see what use you can be to me at all, except as someone to kick. She delivered a neat little kick to Nate's shin. It was incredibly accurate considering she couldn't see anything. Ow! That was unnecessary. No, it wasn't, said Birdie. I feel much better already. I finally figured it out. This story is just one big durability test to see how long the reader can stomach an entire book in which the main character is a completely unsympathetic nincompoop. Nate eventually decides that enough is enough and attempts to break them both out, using Birdie's fashion show invitation and one of her hairpins to open the locked door. They manage to escape their prison and find themselves wandering a seemingly deserted house, although Birdie starts to panic while believing that they've been left for dead. But after hearing the sounds of the kidnappers heading back indoors, she and Nate quickly hide in a nearby cupboard when they manage to overhear Fat Man and Robin discussing her ransom. What the fuck are we supposed to do now? It's been 24 hours since we sent our ransom demand, and what has our old man done about it? Absolutely fuck all. Are you sure we sent the demand to the right email address? Are you saying I fucked up? Was Robin's response. Of course not, man. It's just that nothing at all. I tell you, that man is cold. Was one of my family had been snatched, I would pay up in an instant. Julius is so evil that a pair of kidnappers and would-be murderers are shocked by his heartless ways. Clearly, Monsieur Cederberg thinks that the price we have set for his granddaughter is too high. $1 million? He's got 100 times more than that in his checking account. It was true. Birdie listened incredulously. $1 million too high a price for her? Her grandfather could spend that much on ties at Charlotte, but he had refused to hand it over for her. What was he playing at? I dunno. Seeing as how Julius knows Birdie more than anyone, he's probably expecting her to annoy her abductors into submission. That's how she's managed to get through life so far. Back to Julius Cederberg being a total prick while refusing to negotiate with detectives. What cartoonish villainy can we expect from him this time? We thought it might be a good idea for you to record a video clip of your own. All you have to say is that you want to negotiate. I don't want to negotiate. I've written you a little script, Bryden persisted. I have people of my own to do that. Now, Cederberg addressed the police team, I appreciate that this is probably the way you've always worked when it comes to kidnappings, but I have to tell you I don't have time to mess about. And it seems to me that we already know who we should be looking for in any case. Why don't you go back to shaking down those hippies in Santa Monica till they tell you where Nate Hathaway is gone? I predict that when you find Nate Hathaway, that is when you will find my granddaughter. Nate Hathaway is clearly the brains behind this, and I want his head on a stick. I swear to God, with every scene that he's in, Julius sounds more and more like the villain in a movie where the hero is a talking dog. But then again, we do have Birdie. What? Oh, come on. Too easy. Too easy. Later that night, while their kidnappers are asleep, Birdie and Nate try to make their escape, but they soon wake up and a brief chase ensues. Fortunately, they manage to escape Fat Man and Robin and run outside into the night. They're forced to hide up in the tree and wait until the morning before doing anything else drastic. Nate tells Birdie to keep watch while he sleeps, only for her to do the complete opposite. How could Birdie possibly sleep, stuck up in a tree of her gardener, the gardener who had been just as intent on kidnapping her as Robin and Fat Man had? Though he had got Birdie out of the house, surely the most likely scenario was that he was just going to take her straight to some other set of hoods who would make their own demands of her grandfather. All that talk of rescuing her when he was really just setting her up again. Birdie decided she had to get down the tree and start to make her own way out of the forest. She didn't trust Nate, and she didn't need him. With one last glance back at Nate, sleeping on in his man-sized nest, Birdie started walking. She looked straight ahead, neither to the left nor to the right, afraid of what she might see there. She hummed to herself to block out the noises, the cracking of branches that weren't breaking beneath her own feet, the primeval shrieks of birds she didn't recognise, the anguished yips of a coyote. What an idiot. No, I don't care if she's just escaped from being held hostage or that she's possibly undergoing some sort of trauma right now. She's still a selfish fucking idiot idiot who's willing to sacrifice Nate based on a misunderstanding while she heads off to save her own skin. And provided that she doesn't get eaten alive by a pack of coyotes or a pissed off mother bear or something, she'll probably die of hunger before the sun rises anyway. I'm not so much fearing for her life as I am fearing for her god-awful characterisation. Birdie starts to fantasise about her homecoming, with millions of adoring fans cheering in celebration, and even Julius himself congratulating her for managing to survive against all odds. However, it's not too long before reality sets back in and she comes to a painful realisation. She was going to die in that forest and it was all Dean Stevenson's fault. If he hadn't dumped her, then she wouldn't be in this predicament. Or maybe it was Emily B's fault. If she hadn't made a play for Dean, then maybe he wouldn't have dumped Birdie. Or maybe it was Clemency's fault. If she'd been more careful about whom she talked to about the kidnap. Or if Chipper had been less of a wimp and expressed her reservations more firmly. Or if her grandfather had provided proper security for her like she was always asking him to do. Or if Nate's stupid green Avengers had been better prepared and kidnapped her first. Yeah, the emotional impact of Birdie's sudden character growth is somewhat ruined by having her blame everybody else for all the problems that she started in the first place. Birdie sank down into the leaf mould on the forest floor and began to cry. The forest ahead of her seemed denser than ever. She was lost. Had she been headed in the right direction, she would definitely have come across the road by now. There had been moments in Birdie's life before when she'd considered herself properly frightened, waiting for the results of the math test, waiting for Chipper's mother to come home and see the carnage left behind by a teenage party, waiting to tell her grandfather that she'd been arrested for driving under the influence. But in this moment, she experienced an altogether more visceral fear. It was something she had simply not allowed herself to feel for a very long time. And then she starved to death. The end. No, that's obviously not how it ends. But we do get even more internal monologuing from Birdie as she thinks back to the night her parents died. Don't answer the door to strangers, the nanny had said. So when the lady police officer came to find her later that night, Birdie refused to open the door. She felt the policewoman's cold, slim hand grasping hers. It was as though she were an angel, come to help Birdie step over the threshold and into a world that would be very different from the one she had always known. Interesting story, Birdie. Shame you're still not a very nice person. But all of a sudden, Nate shows up by her side, having went off to search for Birdie after waking up and realising she was gone. They manage to light a fire and make a shelter, yet conflict briefly arises over their limited options for food. It took a long time to start the fire. Nate cursed the films he had watched as a child that made rubbing a couple of sticks together look so easy. Then Birdie wasn't happy when she learned they would be eating rabbit. I am in a nightmare, said Birdie. And the only way out is through. Eat some rabbit. I'd rather starve.